We are going all the way back to Econ 101, Business 101. We're going to talk about supply and demand in this video, along with a few other topics that we're going to touch on. So stay tuned and let's get to the show.
Step on up, grab a chair, take a load off your feet. There's whiskey on the table and stories to repeat. We're talking about the hustle, the grind, and what we'll find in the heart of second chances where treasures bind.
Welcome everyone to the video. Welcome to the Poor Resellers Almanac podcast. And here we're going to discuss reselling. We're going to talk. We are going all the way back to Econ 101, Business 101. We're going to talk about supply and demand in this video, along with a few other topics that we're going to touch on. So stay tuned and let's get to the show. And just kind of going over, the basics, really. I'm not going to go give a whole lecture on it. Well, it's kind of like a lecture, I guess, but I'm not going to go all, a whole class on this. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. We'll talk about CPI, PPI, consumer sentiment. We'll address that first because, I'm just going to look over that pretty quickly, especially with recent events going on in the world right now, oh man, it's crazy. But let's break into the bourbon here. It's a bourbon, it's a whiskey. It's Kirkland. Look at that, Costco, small batch. It's actually, it's from Barton. But 1792 is how they, if you were to see their bourbon out there, it'd be 1792 on the bottle. So it's a good one. I haven't had 1792 in a while. And so it just says small batch by Barton 1792. The funny thing about Costco and their whiskey, or all their spirits for that matter, they don't tell you where because Costco doesn't have distilleries. Okay. So they don't tell you exactly where they're sourcing the product from. This is a distributor, if I'm not mistaken, is still, it doesn't say on the bottle. It doesn't say on the bottle, but it's still, it's that one, Alexander and Murray. I'm pretty sure it's still them, but Alexander and Murray, they're kind of like the distributors. They secure the stuff for Costco. And so, essentially, I'm going to go with the assumption that this is 1792 in here. The one that's in the whiskey world, the one that's that Costco has branded as Kirkland, and everyone that has it, that tries it, tastes it, believes it is the Macallan. And they have towards the end of the year, they usually have a 1.5 liter bottle of Scotch, a Speyside Scotch whiskey, a 12-year Speyside Scotch whiskey for $99.99, $100 for the bottle. It's a great deal. It's a great deal, and it tastes and it has all the characteristics of a Macallan 12. And the Macallan 12, I think is like $70 a bottle right now, so it's a pretty good deal to get a liter and a half for $100. But they never admit to it. Nobody admits to it. Macallan doesn't admit to it. Costco doesn't say what it is exactly. I think the other one is the Costco branded vodka, where everyone believes it to be Grey Goose, and the general consensus is it's Grey Goose, but neither, Grey Goose or Costco will tell you exactly where they source from. So, it's all left up to the person, but nonetheless, it did, good. It's all good all the way around. Can we get this open, or do I have something here that'll help me get it open? Oh, there's no it's a plastic. So come on. At this moment, I don't have anything here at my desk to help me. All right, there we go. Got it. Okay. All right, cool. All right, just having laps here. Okay, perfect. This is a 1 liter bottle, actually. 1 liter. They're calling this batch 1,124. Small batch. It's kind of like, small batch is basically just for marketing. I mean, but is a small batch really, right? You do, you do 100 barrels, and then let's say you do 95 barrels. That's smaller than 100, right? So you got a small batch, but it's essentially the same thing. So just a marketing ploy is what it is. Although if you see like barrel proof or single barrel, then it just came from that one barrel. There was no blending or anything involved like that. Because most whiskeys are blended. Majority actually are blended. Um, to get the right flavor profile that they would like. So it's not a bad thing. I think it looks like an artificial cork. Smells like bourbon. So I got my little cool little Glenlivet glass here, and let's give it a little pour. Did I say it was 46% alcohol? And so that means it's 92 proof. Yeah, 92 proof on there. Okay. Yep, smells like bourbon. Which isn't a bad thing, I may say things like, it's just like regular old bourbon, but it's still good. It's still good whiskey. It's just, I've talked about it before, I look for the experience. And so, just something that's more complex. If I just say it's a bourbon, it's still good. It's not like, some that I have where it's just not good at all. I don't like it. Like, yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Jack Daniels at all. So, I'll be like, oh, man, it's Jack Daniels, right? It's not very good, but other ones I talk about where I'm like, it's just a bourbon, it's just a regular bourbon. It's not that it's bad, it's just a bourbon. There's no complexity to it at all. And this was and mind you, this bottle, 1 liter, essentially, in my opinion, well, I'll taste it right now, 1792 is 18.99 for the bottle. So a crazy good price, crazy good deal. So when I saw it there, I'm like that. Why not? 18.99. Do you really didn't have anything else that I was interested in? So like, all right, let's do it. Yeah. It just smells like a traditional bourbon. Oh yeah. Good heat there. It kind of disappears really, really quickly. Um, yeah, like it completely evaporates really, really fast. So that could be good or bad, depending on what you like. You want it to stick around for a while? Do you want it to quickly just, you know, evaporate and go down easy? I mean, there's definitely some heat there. Oh yeah, there's like a lot of flavor right off the bat. It's kind of like I don't know, what's something that you get like there's like a candy. I can't remember it right away, but you get not that it has the flavor, but it has that where as soon as you take it, you take it in, it's like it just disappears immediately in your mouth. Like cotton candy almost. When you have cotton candy and you stuff your mouth full of cotton candy, it all disappears. That's kind of what it's like in here. Like the cotton candy, it just kind of just all disappears. It doesn't taste like cotton candy. It's not as sweet like cotton candy. Um, but it's more your traditional bourbon. It's more just your classic, big pop of cherry flavor in there. Your woods, your woodiness, your smoke and all that. Yeah, it's a good bourbon. It's a good bourbon. There's no complexity or anything really there that I can pick up on. Um, in my opinion, I don't think this needs ice or water. It'd be personal preference. Maybe if it's a hot day, you might want to chill it down. Although I think if you add water or ice to it, it might kind of it's not a heavy bourbon, so you might lose all the flavor in there. If you do add water or ice to it, in my opinion, I might try. I might take a break and give it a try. But I kind of like it just like this. It's pretty good. I like the fact that it just kind of as soon as you take it in, it's almost like everything just evaporates, like it just disappears, like and you just get the perfume of all the bourbon flavors and everything in your mouth. That's actually okay. That's actually a unique thing. That's not something that's common. That's a little unique. So you just kind of get the flavor in your mouth, and it gets your what do you call it? It gets your taste buds going, or you start to build up saliva. You start to get more. You start to salivate a little bit. It's trying to get you going there. Um, and so that's pretty. That's actually, like when you're looking forward to like a good steak. I mean, if you like steak, if you're looking forward to like a good steak or something like that, you're like, and you start to salivate. You're like, oh man, you can already taste it almost. That's kind of what this is giving me right here. Really good. I am. The more I'm drinking it, the more I like it. Mhm. There's just enough heat to tell you that it's there. Yeah, it's just a traditional, spirit burn that you get from any whiskey or any spirit. But the flavor profile, it's a great. I really like the whole disappearing thing. As soon as I take it in, like, and then it's like, oh, okay, it's good. It's really good. Okay, I like that. I do really like that. All right. See, I haven't had 17. I'll probably have to buy a bottle of 1792 to try it. I haven't had that in probably a few years. I do remember it was good, but that's about it. Yeah, it's been several years. I've had many whiskeys in between that. Okay, so really quick, we'll address CPI, PPI, and consumer sentiment. So CPI is consumer price index. So basically, what you're paying for stuff. And then PPI is producer price index. So what, how much, producers are paying, how much, their costs. And then, consumer sentiment, all those little surveys you fill out. It comes from the University of Michigan, I think. Don't quote me on that. I'm not sure. If you know, drop in the comments down below. If I'm right, let me know I'm right. But nonetheless, like all those surveys and everything you fill out and all that, they go somewhere. So, first and foremost, which came out first was CPI, so Consumer Price Index. It went up. It went up, so that means prices went up. Overall, on average, you can go look at the whole list of things, what went up, what went down. But on average, it went up 0.1%, right? And then you don't really need to look at the details to really, really get, you could, but they feel like the devil's in the details. I don't think that's really necessary here in this case. And then PPI, so the producer price index, it was up. It was up 3%. So the other one was up 0.1%, and then the other one was up 3%. But estimates or people that were they were forecasting higher, not too much higher, but nonetheless, they were forecasting higher. And it came in under the forecast, which is good. You want to come in under the forecast, or basically you want to beat the forecast, I should say. In this instance, you want to come in under, but like if they're forecasting your profit, you want to come in over the forecast. So, you want to beat the forecast, whatever it is, whether it's up or down, you want to beat it. Okay, then consumer sentiment, which is basically just how people feel about the economy, was good, was overall good. So everything was good news. However, one thing to be aware of is that things did go up. As far as prices, went up a little bit. It didn't go up as expected, but nonetheless, it went up anyway. And then, what producers are paying for. So the people that are producing the stuff or wholesalers, their cost went up as well. And there's a huge difference. That is 0.1 versus, 3%. So, what does that mean? That means that, the places retail, they're not raising prices as high as we may have thought. We may have been thinking that tariffs are going to increase prices. Well, we still have yet to feel those effects. So we're still getting the numbers. The numbers still look good. So, and what I don't know if I really want, but many people want the Fed, who controls the interest rates. It's not just one man, it's a group, right? Although the one man is the face of the actual, is the the person that goes up on the podium and answers questions and all that. But they want the Fed, the group, to drop interest rates. But the numbers do not support a drop yet. It could. And that's a lot of people, a lot of analysts and everybody is saying, look down the road, down the road, it's going to be, that's where the problem is going to be, but the numbers just don't support it. And it's smart to follow the numbers. It's definitely smart to follow the data and everything and make your decisions according to the data. But it's also something to be said about being forward thinking and, being able to, anticipate what's going to come and prepare for that now, as opposed to sitting back and waiting for the numbers to come in, because the numbers don't come in until, by the time the numbers come in, it could be too late. So that's what people are thinking. And then consumer sentiment is good. Everybody's is well, as of right now, I should say. Not it's not a laughing matter, but what's currently going on in the Middle East will definitely have an effect on everything. We saw that today, as far as Friday goes in the stock market. We saw oil prices go up. Why? Because of the war. Was there any problem with oil right now? No, there's no issues with oil. There's no issue at the moment. But they're anticipating there to be problems with oil in the future because of what is going on in the Middle East right now. Um, that will probably dominate a lot of not just the news, but it will, be on everybody's minds, and they will react accordingly to that news. Um, it's very, very, it's a very, the Middle East situation is a very tense situation, and it could, nonetheless, if anything escalates in the Middle East, then that could pull in a lot of other countries, not just us, not just the United States. That could pull in a lot of other people. This is not the Russia and Ukraine war. This is different. This can pull in a lot of the other major powers in the world into this, and we don't want that. We don't want that to happen. One side note is, the Russia Ukraine war, you know, um, we did the same thing. The United States, and by we, because I'm an American, that's why I say we. Otherwise, I wasn't alive back when this occurred. But the United States and America did the same exact thing that Russia was doing. Obviously, hopefully, we're a little bit more, we're beyond that now. But I mean, we did win the war, and we did, win more territory. Went to war with Mexico over this issue, and so we still, you know, America did the same thing. So as Russia, and just want to throw that out there as well too. So all this news is obviously it's a negative news, and I really don't want to draw any. Even though I did, but I don't want to say that this war is going to be bad on the economy, or on your portfolio or whatever, because there's lives at stake here. Lives are at stake on both sides. Doesn't matter what side you're on. There's lives at stake here, and it goes beyond stock market or whatever. Okay, now that being said, okay, did I draw a conclusion yet? Okay, so CPI and PPI, eventually, those prices are going to have to go up. If the cost of goods continues to go up, even though it's beating estimates, if it continues to go up, and the price that people are actually paying isn't meeting that, like they're not raising prices, that means that's less profit for these companies. The margin is shrinking, and they don't like that. They don't like that at all. You think Apple likes, the shrinking margins? No way, Jose. No way. They're gonna, make the necessary adjustments. They may raise prices. Who knows? They may, there may be layoffs in the future to try to balance that out. But we'll see. We'll see what the future holds. It's definitely something to be aware of. Yes, everything looks good. All the numbers are beat, but nonetheless, there was still, a raise in prices overall, a raise in price as far as what producers are paying, and a raise or what their cost, and then a raise in, what we're paying as well too. So even though consumer sentiment is great, consumers love what's going on right now with the economy. So, okay. Let's go ahead and, yeah, let's go ahead and get into, what did I say? Let me draw this family. Hold on. Okay, now to get on to the main topic, I got my notes, got my fan turned on, and that starting to get a little sweaty here. It's a little hot. I might add ice to that bourbon later. I might just have iced tea later. Oh, something's rumbling outside. It sounds just like a motorcycle. But okay, supply and demand. You never really hear anybody talk about supply and demand. They look at the appropriate data. They look at the what's sold compared to what's currently listed. But that is, like I said, market research, it's supply versus demand, it's business 101. It's the fundamentals to this, to what we do. If you're selling anything, if you're retail, if you sell services, if you sell goods, you want to know what the demand is and you want to know what the supply is. And then, that's really going to, the balancing act of that is really going to determine the price of everything. And so it's a delicate, and mind you, it's a delicate balancing act because, you really don't want one that's way out of whack than the other. You kind of want them both, at kind of like an equilibrium. But there's certain instances, where obviously, like, everybody wants a Ferrari, everybody would like a Lamborghini, right? There's obviously demand for it, but they maintain this I am, but I pronounce it right. Exclusivity. I think I'm pronouncing that right. By maintaining such a high price, and they have, yeah, obviously, the quality of the workmanship, commands that kind of a price, and there are people that can't pay that price. So there's different, spectrums to the market as far as, not everybody's going out and buying Lamborghini and Ferraris. There's a level of that market where there is also a supply and demand issue there. But we're primarily talking about, everyday items, everyday things, computer parts, mice, cameras, things like that, right? That's where we're really, that's what we're really looking at here. So demand is the consumers, is people like me, people like everybody else, people like you out there, consumers, everybody that consumes something. And then supply is the products that are being produced by a supplier, by somebody that's, a manufacturer or, a wholesaler, that's, they are in control of the supply. And like I said, you want to balance. You definitely would like to have a equilibrium with that. You want the demand to be able to meet the supply. You really don't want it too far out of whack. The key, the key here is not to exceed one or the other. You don't want you really don't want crazy demand and not enough supply. Although there are plenty of instances where that occurs. The issue that could come about from something like that is you could lose, companies, can lose out on profit, basically, is what it is, if they don't have enough supply to meet the demand. And, when that demand is there, you kind of want to meet that demand. You want to be able to have enough to fulfill that demand so you can make the most amount of money possible, right? There are other ways to balance that out. I was saying here, it affects the price. So great demand on low supply, it can cause prices to go up. That's the other part too. It can, if there is low supply but high demand, it causes the price to go up. And then, eventually the price can get to a point where it can reach an equilibrium until supply catches up. But then you run into another issue where potentially that demand can disappear. And then you have all the supply and the demand is gone, is disappeared. Obviously, that's not the case for certain things like consumer staples. We saw that with eggs this year. We saw eggs go up. Obviously, this is, like I said, this is applying to not consumer staples, things that are, not necessarily essential items. And so like I said, no, if the price goes up too much, you could scare away all that demand. Or you could be like, yeah, do we really, really need that now? And like, no, we don't really need it. And then once you start getting more and more people saying that, once you bring those prices down, like I was saying earlier, that demand can disappear. can really, really disappear. And that's what, a lot of supply with, not as much demand drives prices down. And what happens is the margins start to go shrink, shrink, shrink for all these companies out there that are producing these items. And they don't want that either. They don't want, a shrinking margin for these items. Where we see this all the time. We see items, being in the reselling space, where we source items at. Some people do retail arbitrage. And I've recommended in the past going to places like TJ Maxx or Marshalls to source items to do some arbitrage. And where are they getting their products from? They're getting their products from all these other bigger companies that couldn't sell it at a certain price. So they couldn't sell it. They probably put it on sale. They couldn't sell it on sale. They probably clearance it out. They couldn't sell it there. And then it moves on to all these discount other, companies. Other companies, they buy it for, pennies on the dollar. And they obviously don't charge nowhere near what it would have gone for retail. Their job is to try to move it as quickly as possible at the lowest price possible. And so that's all overstock. That's all supply that was too much. That was too much of the supply was what it was. And so now they're trying to find a price point that people are willing to pay to try to get those items sold, get them out of here. And then even then, like TJ Maxx and all those places, even those places start to have, discounts and clearances and everything like that. And eventually, they somehow get sold or donated, and then the whole cycle keeps going. Then they show up at places like Goodwill. They show up in places like other thrift stores, Salvation Army. So that's what happens with oversupply. And so you don't really want oversupply either, because then, like I said, those companies start to lose money on those products that they produced. So it's a delicate balance to try to determine what's viable, right? Try to determine what, when it's a company, or in this case, a reseller is looking at an item, to see if it's a viable item to resell, which is why it is important to look at the what's sold versus what is currently listed. That's going to give you what's going on in the market at that moment. Seeing that real-time data is rare. It's not something that all these big time companies necessarily have access to. We do, and we can see it, on eBay, and you can see, like, places like Poshmark. We really can't tell. Sometimes, when you Google search image search something, it'll tell you sold on Etsy, and it might tell you what price it's sold for. But on eBay, it gives you all the information that you need to make the most educated decision when you're purchasing items. So it's very important, very important. So I don't want to, diminish that data. It is important, and the people that, beat home the fact that data is, they call it something else, yeah, they call it something else that's fine, call it whatever you want, but the data is still correct. Looking at the data is still the correct thing to do. And current example of this whole situation is, if you're familiar with the Labubus, those little monster plush things that have just insane, demand right now, just a crazy demand. Those little Pop Mart stores over at our mall here, there's a line. Every time they have a drop, there's a line of people waiting for those things. And they're sold out. They sold out immediately. At another mall, they actually have they have a limit to how many people can actually go into the store and purchase. So, there's incredible demand right now, and there's not that much, there's not that much supply right now at the moment, and so I'll talk a little bit about another topic really quick, but that's an instance where, the prices are going up on them. Prices are definitely going up on them. We see prices going up on them in the secondary market as well, too. That's where kind of the secondary market comes into play as well. You might see bigger swings in prices on the secondary market, as opposed to the retail market. Another instance where, where supply just completely tanked the whole product is the Beanie Babies craze. So Beanie Babies were crazy. Like, they were selling out like hockey, like Laboo. They were selling out all the time. I mean, I was involved in it. I was involved in the crate getting those Beanie Babies. We had, groups going. We knew where the drops were going to happen. We knew who was getting what bears, who was doing all this stuff. We had the inside scoop and information. We were sleeping at Hallmarks, outside of Hallmark, that is, not inside of Hallmark, outside of Hallmark, waiting for these drops, getting these items and to get them sold. And then I remember the big, it just started the steady decline. Now I was going, at the time, I was doing a lot of collectible shows, sports car. I was Penrose doing sports cards, but I was doing a lot of other collectibles at that point. And so, got to talk with other dealers, other people there. We had booths at all these different shows that were going on. And we could see, you could see the demand start to diminish. We didn't have, eBay. We didn't have smartphones to check eBay, right? So, we were there at the shows and, we're paying attention to what is going on at these shows. What are people buying? What's being left behind? What are people still taking home, from their booths? We were doing our visual research. We were just monitoring everything, walking the floor, managing our own booth and everything. I was doing with friends. Um, and we could see all, we knew exactly what was going on, with the Beanie Baby when the decline was occurring. We saw a lot more people come into that space trying to make sales, trying to sell those items. And, we eventually just pulled out, at the right moment. So being aware of these things and monitoring these things and staying in the know is what it's all about. Obviously nowadays we have so much more information. We can ask ChatGPT this information. I mean, I use ChatGPT to analyze data right now as we speak. So, utilize all the tools. We have so much at our disposal right now to be able to make the best educated decision possible. When we're out there purchasing items for resale online. So that supply eventually of Beanie Babies tanked the whole market of Beanie. I mean, the TY, the Thai brand is still around. They still make, it's not, what it was. And don't believe it. If you hear anybody say, this Beanie Baby is worth this, but that, it's not. Don't believe it at all. Don't get suckered into that. They might sell for, 2, 3, 4. I've sold Beanie Babies for, $5-ish, $6-ish dollars a piece. A unit. I'll definitely try to lot them up together if I do come across them. I'm not going to pay that much for them. I'll tell you that right now. We're talking like 10, maybe 5 cents a thing, right? Now, I'm going to get a big old bundle for a few bucks is what it is. Because they will sit for a while, but they still sell. They still move. They're not like, it's not like what it was. I remember when those Aaron Bears first came out. Man, those were the hottest thing. But, high demand environment, but, and just, yeah, let's move on. What else? Tell that crowd. I talked about that. We talked about the crash of Beanie Babies. You have a lot of product. Okay, now, what I wanted to jump into, like with Labubu, they just had a drop recently of Labubu, and they were doing, they were kind of like, so they're kind of branding them is what they're doing. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they were these ones that were coming out. I think they came out on the 12th, which was yesterday. Demi filming this yesterday. And I think they were kind of going after the what do you call it? Like fast food market, like making them, I don't know exactly. I didn't see anything online, but it sounded like they're probably going to be like dressed up as like someone from McDonald's or something like that, or a Burger King one or something. So a lot of brands can use certain tricks to try to, keep demand going on a product. They may have flooded the market, with products. And we saw this a lot with the sports cards back in the late 90s, and early 2000s. And we just saw like they were coming out with all kinds of inserts, special editions, parallels. It's happening right now, actually. It's happening again. There were really like one of one. There were one of ones once here and there, but there were really like one of ones, like cards that where they only make one of those cards. Like that's a trick they can use. Try to create some sort of scarcity within a generally flooded area. They're making a bunch of, tops. They're making a bunch of tops cards. They're making a bunch of tops cards for baseball. There's going to be a whole bunch of them. But within that tops universe, they will have certain exclusive cards like parallels, autographs. I remember when they first started releasing, what do you call it? Game used jersey cards and stuff like that. Now they have game used everything, one of ones, like I was talking about one of ones, now there's like a one of one. And there's like a one-of-one black parallel. There's a one-of-one blue parallel. There's a one-of-one. So at some point, it's like, okay, you have a one-of-one of everything now. I mean, is it really a one-of-one now? Nike is probably one of the biggest offenders of this, of trying to create this sort of uniqueness with the same exact product, the Jordan 1. How many different colorways can you have of a Jordan 1? They have so many colorways of that. So many. It's crazy. Like just one this colorway. This could be switch up this color. This is more of a lighter red. This is more of an off black. This is more an off white. And then they do all these different, combinations of the same exact shoe to try to create some sort of demand out of something of a category that's already completely flooded. And I believe people have already like seen through all that and are already like, all right, we have enough Jordan 1s now. Let's move on to something else. There's definitely trend nowadays, these trends, happen so quickly with social media. Back in the day, it didn't happen that quickly. And they definitely lasted for a while longer. Nowadays with social media, these trends happen so quickly and they're almost like a flash in the pan. You got to quickly like jump on it and be on it. And then by the time you know it, it's already gone and over. These little boo-boos might be over pretty soon. Another one are like those pop characters, those pop characters. Yeah, they have their day. I don't think they have their day anymore. Are they the Beanie Baby of our era? I think the one good thing that they have going for them is that they are associating themselves with pop culture things, like, things from comics, things from movies, things that people like, they're associating them with characters that people like and enjoy. They're like, pick up a Seinfeld character. I have the Seinfeld ones. I'm a huge Seinfeld fan. They'll pick up the Seinfeld ones, there's Lego. Lego is, they started licensing IPs, Star Wars, of course, Lego Star Wars is huge, huge. And so, there's only so many things you can deal with a one little minifigure. So then they start, going out different IP, Lord of the Rings, they got Star Wars, they have all the Marvel stuff going on. So, they're creating demand in a product that's already flooded the market. A lot of the heads for all these minifigures, I have a bunch of minifigures standing right over here. Well, it's actually the opposite of my thumb when my thumb's pointing, but nonetheless, for me, it's over here. All the heads are like exactly the same. It's like the bodies are kind of different. So, that the market is completely flooded with minifigures, but there's so many different variants of it. I guess variants is the right word. Variants that they're creating this demand within a flooded market already. So there's different tricks of the trade that they can use and, create some, exclusiveness within there. Obviously, like Rolex, there's always going to be demand. I mean, shoot, if Rolexes came down to like $500 a watch, obviously people would start buying and buying and buy, but they would lose that exclusivity. I gotta slow down when I'm pronouncing it. That exclusivity to the product, and I don't think Rolex wants to do that. Not only that, the amount of effort and work that goes into a Rolex. Have you ever opened up a Rolex before? The workings on the inside. Have you ever opened up an automatic watch at all? The amount of like detail that is in there that goes into that, it is amazing. Way too tedious for someone like me. But it's pretty amazing, like the amount of work and effort that goes into these automatic watches. That's a thing too. There's a lot of things that people don't think about, like an end user, like me, like anybody else. That we don't think about. The work that goes into these products, and these people got to get paid. So these people are paid, and that's also a cost that has to be built into the end product, the end result. Cameras, there's somebody that had to do all the research and had to do all the prototypes and everything and make sure everything works. They have to make sure, like this one here, the screen flips. So you have to have someone that go in there to be able to do all that stuff. So these people are getting paid, and that is going into the cost of the overall item. By the way, I don't know if I think it might be, it might be a tariff thing and also a demand thing, but the cost of these DJI pockets is another one, I guess, another example here. So when I purchased this one, it was $499.99 to $500. Just skip the penny there. $500 right here for this camera. Um, but now they're currently going for $799. Now, when they were $500, they were flying off the shelves, flying off the shelves. They couldn't keep them in stock. And now they're sitting over at Costco for $7.99 at Costco. Well, according to the cards, Costco has a weird system where you pick up the card and then well, obviously it's a security thing. You take the card and then you take it to the register, then you go to the back, the back room, and then they give you the product. But at $7.99, they're sitting on the shelves right now. So perhaps it could be a tariff thing. I didn't really look into too much into it. I knew their prices were going up. But I also know the demand on these was incredibly high at $500, and they were selling out at $500. So maybe it's a combination of raising the price because of the demand, and maybe they underestimate. That's another thing too. You could underestimate the demand for your product at a certain price point, so then you got to make adjustments at that point as well. There's so much to talk about. When it comes to business and all this, there's so much involved, and there's so much to learn, and just try to be as informed as possible. There's so much information out there, and a lot of it is free. You don't even go to business schools anymore. I don't think. I think you can learn a lot of this stuff, through the School of Hard Knocks, through looking online, through videos online. I'm pretty sure there are courses online that are way cheaper than trying to get a degree in it and all that. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. A lot of stuff that goes into it. So, and then you can have businesses. I was just watching the thing on, what was I watching it on? And they just mentioned again, everyone always throws out there the fact that Costco, sells their hot dogs at a loss. I think I was watching this hot dog competition thing, but either way, they were saying, hot dog, Costco hot dogs, are fairly good. And these people were rating the hot dogs, if I remember. And they were saying, these Costco hot dogs, Costco works at a loss for these hot dogs. They lose money on their hot dogs, but they make it up in their memberships. They make it up in everything else they sell. Like, I'm pretty sure, I don't know, but I'm pretty, it's 99, for a bottle. I think they, in my opinion, they're probably losing money on this, generally for this bottle, I think 17.92 probably comes in about $40-ish. I haven't looked it up, so I'm just kind of shooting off the top of my head there. So to get like a one, that would be 750 milliliter, and to get a full liter at below sub $20 is pretty crazy. So I mean, Costco is a whole nother beast. I mean, that's a whole nother, that'd be a whole nother video, hour, 2 hour long video to try to work through the mechanics that to work through the whole thing of how Costco works and operates. They're a machine, and because of their name, they can command, and you know, they can force producers to drop their price. They just have that much control because everybody knows the Costco name. Everybody wants to be at Costco. And because of that, it gives them control over the price of, what they pay for items and what they offer items for. So, and what they can offer, no other place could probably get away with a whole liter of Barton 1792 at $18.99. There's probably no other place that can get away with that. Bevmo, Total Wine, only Costco is a place that can probably get away with that. So, either way, that's where I'll leave you here today. Thank you for watching. I hope everybody enjoys the video. Hope it's informative and it helps everybody out. Obviously, you don't need to know all the specifics, all the definitions of everything. I believe it helps. I believe it makes you a better reseller, a better e-commerce person, a better seller of goods online. So I'm going to sign off here, and I'll catch you on the next video. Oops, I hit the wrong button.
Hey, you've made it to the end. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this content, please like the video by hitting the thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel by hitting my little round icon down below. It really does help us out here. Also, you'll find a couple of selections. You'll see a playlist of videos to watch and my most recent video that I did upload.